All right, Rich Casanova back in the Atlanta studio here for Global Podcast Studios, and we have the man of the hour, the myth, the legend, Dewayne Hart is standing by for, he's going to talk all things cybersecurity. He literally wrote the book on the subject matter. He has a podcast. He's just launched a YouTube channel. And today's topic is going to be talking about protecting your church from cyber attackers. And so let's start off the show with some key facts before we bring in the man of the hour here. Did you realize worldwide spending on cybersecurity is forecast to reach $133 billion in 2022. Data breaches exposed 4.1 billion records in the first half of 2019. 71% of breaches were financially motivated. 25% were motivated by espionage. Enterprise ransomware affects up to 12% in terms of infections. 52% of breaches featured hacking. 28% involved malware, and 32% included phishing or social engineering. Dewayne, those are some pretty staggering stats, right?
There are numbers that if I was a member of a church, or if I'm the pastor of a church, after Sunday,
I'd be saying, "Holy Batman!"
No, I would say that we need to have a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, and call all your members, all of your staff to the office. This is very important.
Right.
But the reason why it's happening is that churches were never ever seen as an institution that would be cyber hacked because they don't produce goods.
Right.
Because they're not looked at as a business. So they look at it as a private institution.
Right. And they're not technology based traditionally, right? They're not collecting a lot of data that in terms of the church, not thinking in terms of, right? But in fact, technology is used everywhere. Yep.
Cybersecurity is the fabric of technology. So if someone uses a computer, or if you attach that computer to the internet, you are involved with cybersecurity.
Right.
Even in the faith-based institutions like church.
Right.
And speaking of a couple of weeks ago, there was a cyber attack on like one of the churches, but I vaguely remember the name. But what I remember was that a lot of data was exposed.
Right.
Man, it's not really anything that should scare us, but it should raise our awareness so that we can be more so knowledgeable of what goes around with cybersecurity, because cybersecurity is kind of under the rug.
Right.
Because it's that moving piece.
I mean, it speaks to that statement that we've all heard, if you see something, say something, right? So we have to it's an awareness situation, right? And we're going to be talking about some of these red flags as we move on. So, first, four questions. You kind of talked about why cyber criminals attack churches. I mean, well, let's actually, before we move on to the next question of these four questions, what are some of the motivations? You talked about the awareness for the church. Why would a cyber criminal be interested in attacking a religious institution or organization? What's in it for them, so to speak, right?
Show me the green.
Okay.
It is about money, all right? Because churches are considered a financial honeypot.
Right.
Now, let me break down what a financial honeypot is. A financial honeypot is a place that has a lot of finances that are going either, let's just say the financial transactions are either coming to the church or it's leaving the church.
Yeah.
Now, imagine that is the only type of information that a cyber criminal want.
Right.
A financial honeypot is one of the main reasons, but we can break this down and just look at the church members, because see, we have a lot of people that have been going to church for 40, maybe 50 years.
Right.
So they're old schoolers. So what they do is feel honorable to kind of donate to the church.
Right.
There's no such thing as no, I can't. So as a cyber criminal, you want to take advantage of the kindness of a person.
Right.
Okay. Because criminals are not there to serve good.
Right. Because as a church member, you're not thinking that there's anything nefarious going on at church, right? You're in a religious home or house, so to speak. And also those donors many times are retired and more wealthy, so that many times they're giving a large portion of their wealth to that church organization, and they're not really questioning that there's going to be any the malware involved or somebody tracking that or having access to their account, and they think they may be donating to the church, but the cyber criminal intercepts that potentially.
Yes. Let's take a scenario, right? Let's just say, for instance, if someone is a brand new member, and let's say that they get an email that's stating that you need to go to the church's website and you need to put your information here so that you can have an automated draft that comes out of your bank account every month,
right,
to go to the church. Oh yes, I feel good about giving
exactly.
to the church, but beneath that, it's a bogus link that carries you to maybe a hacker's website or like whatever, and the member put their personal information in there and even their bank account information.
Okay. So you kind of covered a good bit of question number 2 I had on my list about why hasn't there been extensive discussion on the topic. So let's move to number 3, which would be what are some attack scenarios, right? So we kind of talked about the cybersecurity perspective, but give me some rapid fire answers to some of these type of scenarios that might occur.
Okay. So number 1 off the top is a person's account has been compromised. Okay, so let's just talk about that, because that's simple.
Right.
Because that means that the account you use to log into the church's website, or if it's members or staff that work for the church, you think about your account being compromised. 1. 2 is a data breach. A data breach means that there's some personal information such as PII that have been exposed to the public. It could be a social security number. It could be some financial information. All right. The other piece there is just information sharing, period. Because although churches are faith, churches still kind of have to follow that protection scheme of saying that it's certain information that is shared maybe amongst the congregation, and there's information that is not shared with the public because it could be private information.
Right.
All right. So what happens is that information sharing is another problem as well too. Even so, if someone could probably, trick a person into giving up some information that is private,
right,
through like email.
Yep.
Even if a person is in the parking lot talking,
right,
after they leave church or something like that, and if it's some information such as finances or something like that that is being distributed out to someone in the parking lot that is probably wants to carry out a cyber attack.
Because in a traditional church environment before technology, so to speak, those were private conversations, right? They were tended to remain private. Hacker can glean some of that information and use it in a way that was not intended to be used. It also reminded me of talking about the data breach or physical security in church was, used to pass around, I still do it, but the offline version was, the donation, the basket would be passed around. People putting cash in the basket, right? And somebody puts in a $20 bill to get change, and they pull out $30, right? Right, as their change. So that's the digital version we're looking at now, right?
Yes. See, we're in a digital world now where it's convenient to use website, it's convenient to use your computers, and it's convenient to link your accounts into donors and institutions and so forth. So with that said, cybersecurity is under that as a fabric that is supposed to be protecting much of the information for us. But see, we have to always keep in mind that if we took a chain and if we look at all the components of cybersecurity, and if one of those links was a human, and knowing that knowing that one of the threat vectors that you have there is a human and it's the weakest link, then this is where a hacker's going to go.
Right.
Okay. I just want to make a point here. It's because when we look at technology, all right, it is a standard. Humans are flexible.
Right.
Very, very flexible.
Yeah.
So we have to keep that in mind and to raise the awareness, because at the end of the day, technology is going to serve its purpose.
Right.
Humans are flexible, and they could say something and they could give information in the wrong context, the way it could be given access to their accounts when they should not.
Yeah, that's potential good news, is technology used right, with the right intention, has less potential barriers to entry, as I mentioned, like the basket being passed around. It's big. Every person touches that basket in the entire church.
Right.
The likelihood of somebody, fudging on some of that money is harder to monitor than it would be from a digital perspective. But the last question on this topic, we may cover a little bit later in the show, but it's top of my mind right now, is ransomware. So I don't know if you've, is that something that's churches have incidents of? We hear about, government agencies and businesses being held ransom, right? Is that something that you think has happened to church or is on the horizon, or?
It has happened in the past, and there's a potential for it to happen in the future. And I'm going to...
I mean, that could devastate that nonprofit, that church, literally put them out of business and, stop the mission that they are on, right?
Yes, because ransomware will lock down the system and state that you need to give me $1 million before you can have access to your system again. So we have to understand is that ransomware runs through elevated privileges, all right? Because ransomware, it actually takes advantage of your administrative accounts, all right? So let's say that if you have higher level access to the system, right, Rich, and let's say if there was a ransomware attack and it was able to use your account, well, it could use your account to lock down the system.
Right.
And if it locks down the system, then it puts that little message up there and states that I need $600,000 before we unlock your system.
And they don't have the resources to make that happen in many cases, so you're talking about closing their doors. I know you got a couple of thoughts to stay on topic here. Let's move on to question number 4, topic number 4. Let's talk about some secret tips from the cybersecurity mindset. You literally wrote the book on that subject matter, right? That would help a church. So on the short list is talk about educating their members and their staff.
Okay.
Right. What does that look like?
Educating your members and your staff is that we are in a digital world. Members and staff needs to think about digital protection. Okay. Don't just push the button, because 50 years ago, we were not using computers. Although it's a faith-based institution, people are doing crimes because of monetary reasons.
And also opportunity to crime, right? Before the internet, so to speak, there was checks and balances in place to keep people honest. Right.
So you have to think about the fact is that people have to perform as human firewalls, because as a human firewall, you actually have a defensive mindset. Right. You are saying that I do not think that this email here is real. Right. I think that this is a fake email. Right. So I'm going to ask someone on the staff about this first. That is
educating the staff to alert them to that, right?
Yes.
So it's almost basically, I would imagine most churches are holding monthly, weekly, quarterly team meetings, right? So this should be on their agenda each time. Let's review, just like your minutes from the past meeting. What issues arise? What's the newest trends?
Yes. You know what? I'm going to say this for sure. If you listen to this podcast session, if you want amplifying information, please reach out to me. I'd be more than glad to sit down and to go and to have these discussions. About a couple of weeks, I was invited to a job fair. And during that job fair, I spent about 15 or 20 minutes talking to a couple church members, especially about cybersecurity. Right. And they were alarmed at how this industry has changed. Okay. And, I didn't even know that the pastor was sitting in the crowd there. Right. So afterwards, he actually came up and said, that was great. Right. Okay. But hopefully in the future, I can meet with more people and to break cybersecurity down and to show them how having that human firewall and how increasing protection and lower risk will go help your churches out. One of the areas is to create a response plan, because what if a cyber attack happens? How does a church know how to respond? How do you know who to call? Because the number one on the list is 911. Right. You're going to call 50, but 50 has to get their digital forensic people involved. But with most of these cases, you're going to find the FBI or probably DHS or one of the larger government agencies is to come in and to help out as well, too. Last place, modernize your IT systems. Systems get old and aging after time.
Right.
If you're using Windows 7 and Windows XP devices on your network, you need to get it off there quick.
Let's talk about the hacker's hat. Okay, you talk about that a lot in your book and your podcast, and so let's talk about the hacker's hat, and then also in terms of the hat, what about insurance, cybersecurity insurance for the churches as well, right?
Right, because the hacker's hat is about carrying that hacker's mindset.
Right.
All right, let's just imagine, right? Me,
Right.
I want to put on my hacker's hat.
Right.
Here's the way.
And we need to get one. We talked about before the show. Right. So
Right.
I'm wearing a hat, but I'm going to get the hacker's hat. Yeah.
Here's the way I think. I think defensively. I think about the same concept, such as would I give my key to my house to everyone? All right. When I go walk into my house, and if something is out of place, should that not raise my awareness?
Big time.
The same concept about cybersecurity. If you're wearing that hacker's hat, all right.
Right.
You are always thinking about the weakest link.
Mm-hmm.
How can someone make my life miserable? What is it that I've done here that will probably set off an alarm where, a hacker could have ease through the system, all right? Because, see, you're carrying that hacker's mindset, and you're thinking like a hacker would, because a hacker is thinking about this, okay, I don't care about it being a church. I just want that money, all right? Now, this is the mental state of a hacker. So if you're involved with faith-based institutions, then you're going to have to think the same way, because they are cyber criminals.
Right.
All right. That's the nature of the
That's
business
the way they're
today.
wired. That's part of their
Right.
DNA.
Right.
So speaking of red flags and alarms, that's our next topic, and we're going to hit 4 points on that. But just want to remind our listeners, you're listening to the podcast here in our global podcast studios, Rich Casanova alongside Dewayne Hart, and a little infomercial for Dewayne. So if anything so far has triggered an alarm or red flag for you as the pastor or a church member, you need to check out DewayneHart.com. At DewayneHart.com, you can check out his book, The Cybersecurity Mindset, and also his podcast, Chief of Cybersecurity podcast, and also lots of other content, right? So Dewayne, so let's talk about red flags. 4 I have in mind are, let's talk about web addresses, links that don't go where they should be, content that you want to contest, and donations. So first up, let's talk about website names and email addresses. What should be some red flags there?
Red flags is that if it's not a website address that was given to you before to go register,
Right.
You want to invoke your hacker's mindset, because this is where your situation awareness comes in. Okay. Secondly is that if it's from an email address of somebody that you never seen before, or if it made you state, hey, this is the pastor of the church, I just changed my email address, and I need for you to go to this website.
You better call the pastor first, yeah.
Yes, you better call. Right? It's just the way it should operate.
Right. And those emails that are misspelled by one character.
Yes.
Right. I've seen those, and to me, it's a red flag. Also, if you're going to do any kind of e-commerce or any transactions, you're looking for that magic HTTPS, right?
Yes.
And then, so let's talk about links that don't go where they need to when you hover over those.
Well, when you hover over these links, you you want to really look at the source,
right,
and where it came from. Look at the spelling of the link. It's not going to take a long time, because most of the time, if you look at a link, it's going to have have a website that you're supposed to go
Right.
to. Now, if someone tells you that this is the link to the church's online financial system,
Right.
and if in the link it has churchmoney.com, that doesn't sound too legit because it should have your church name there or something.
Yeah.
Right.
When you hover over it, it has an endless number of characters, right?
Yeah.
Or it has a Gmail or unprofessional, not a company email. That's, not always, a factor, but it should just be like raise your hacker's hat, right? And
Yes.
mindset to like, let me take a second look. Let me take a closer look, right? So third on the list is the contest scam, if you will, right?
Oh, scamming?
Yeah. Well, in terms
Okay, scamming is scamming. Let's just say, for instance, right, if someone was supposed to probably go to their church for counseling or something
Right.
like that, right, and if it states that, and they're okay, then we're going to send a cab or somebody just to come and pick you up or whatever, because that your car is not working or something
Right.
like that, so you got to pay like $10. Well, it sounds like a scam,
Right.
Or so if it's from a church or a source claiming to be someone that is a third party company that really represent the church,
Right.
and they need for you to supply some information or to go and to give some financial information out, you may want to get on the phone and call
right.
people
Exactly.
and check your sources.
I agree. And last on the list for this topic matter is donations from members of the congregation, right? Because you think that tugs at your heartstrings, thinking like, oh, somebody's had a tragic situation with their family. And the church is asking for money, or vice versa. A member of the church is reaching out, quote, to the congregation, to the office, and say, I need some help.
Right.
Right.
Here goes the way I like to look at this. All right. If you're going to be doing any type of electronic transaction, what you need to do is to verify that it's the church's website, that it's the legitimate website. And you have people that are old schoolers.
Right.
Some of them would just drive up to the church one day and just give cash away, okay, which is the most safest way to do it, but you make sure you get cash to the right people. And so you have people that write checks as well too.
Right.
But you also too have to make sure that you write in a check to the right source.
Right.
All right. See, it's all kind of factors there that are electronic crimes, and there are some that are not electronic crimes. So you just have to be careful. But from a digital format, if you're using a laptop, you want to make sure that it's from the right link and the right source,
Right.
and the actual right person. Because if you are unsure of the email, and if it has somebody's name in the block down there,
Right.
you could always call that person to say, hey,
Yeah.
I just received an email
Right.
from the church that stated that my password has expired or whatever, and
Right.
I need to update the information.
Right.
And see, you as a person could actually find out that maybe it's not from that church.
Yeah, you got to call the source. I mean, my brother, I think at least once, if not twice, has gotten an email that's saying a family member is in dire straits and needs help. My Uncle Paul, right, is a real story. My brother got this email or text and said, he's stranded, this or that, needs money, whatever. He calls my uncle and he's like, no, I'm fine. What are you talking about, right?
See, Rich, what you just said is someone is going to give you a sad story.
Right.
Okay.
And it sounds legit.
And it sounds legit.
Because they've done a data breach, so they know that Rich and so-and-so is involved or whatever, right? Yeah.
Let's just look at the chain reaction here.
Right.
Someone goes out and they perform some social engineering, right? Then they find out that a person probably sad maybe about a situation or something, right? Okay. And now they use that scenario to go get the funding. So they go and they craft up a fake email and they send it to the person and saying that we understand that millions of people are out of our jobs today and so forth. And we noticed that on on your account with the church, you know, it hasn't been updated in 6 months. Well, we need for you to update it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We are here to help you out because we realize that you don't have a job.
Yeah.
And the person goes online because now, see, they feel good.
Right,
So
yeah.
they go online and they start to put the information in. But what happens is that they're thinking emotionally versus cybersecurity.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So
they
you
have their
have
they have their emotional hat on, not their hacker's hat.
Yes.
Okay, we're almost out of time here, so we're going to do our last segment of the podcast. Now is what we call our top 8 in rapid fire. So in 8 minutes or less, Dewayne, I'm going to put you on the spot. So first up is the common threats to church, which we actually already covered. So good news, we're going to skip past that one there. And again, in a minute or less on each of these topics, let's talk about educating their parishioners. And I think any solution to that would be hosting an event, right? So talk us about education of the parishioners in a minute or less. Go.
I'm going to tell you from the top. Send them to my YouTube channel.
Okay.
If they want to know anything about cybersecurity, you can send them to my YouTube channel. But if you choose not to do that, sit down and have a conversation and actually talk about it on a quarterly basis or somewhat like that, right? You know, like every quarter. Okay?
Yeah, I think quarterly. That's actually I wrote in my notes about most of these things ongoing quarterly. Actually, the third item we talked about is educating the staff, right? So I think we talked about that earlier, and that's really building, I think, into a regular scheduled meeting because most organizations, whether profit, nonprofit, are going to host team meetings on a pretty regular basis. So whenever those team meetings happen, if they're weekly, quarterly, monthly, that should be on the agenda, right? And it can be just a couple of minutes. Right?
Well, part of the educating your staff too is to go understand the third-party vendors, because if you have some third-party vendors that are doing business with the church, your staff need to know who they are, because it can be as simple as someone stating, "Oh, I need to go to your telecommunication closet in here because I need to do maintenance." But hey, was it scheduled?
Right.
Did the third party vendor send over the name of the person that was supposed to be coming into the building? These are the things that need to be talked about, because they can bring in a sniffer and they can sniff that network and they can get all the data they want.
Dang.
And walk away.
Number 4, rapid fire here. Maintaining strong passwords. So this is ongoing quarterly. We've talked about this quite a bit on the podcast. I know you cover it in your book. So just a quick recap of some of the cardinal rules of maintaining a strong password.
Simple. The title means a lot.
Right.
You just have to maintain a strong password. There are different ways to maintain your strong password, but also too, you're going to have to change your password at a frequent basis. But I would say that if you have a 4-character password, get rid of it.
Right.
Okay? Even if you have an 8-character password, get rid of it. If you use your name in a password or your social security number, or if it's something like...
People really use the social security number as part of the password.
I'm just talking. If it's something like Bobcat1.
Right.
Bobcat1.
Right.
Okay.
And especially if your middle name is Bobcat, or it appears all across your website. Quarterly I think is a good rule of thumb there. Also, I remember a couple weeks ago we had that amazing stat that still resonates with me today. I think the stat said something to the effect of, if your password, this is almost like a Jeff Foxworthy, right? You might be a redneck. So if your password is 7 words or less, that can be hacked in 3 seconds, right? If it's 16 characters, it will take a hacker 3,000 years to hack a 16-word password.
Yes.
It's just staggering, the difference. And you think like, well, that seems like a pain for a 16-word password. But if you save it once and you store it, in a secure place, you're covered. Okay, so number 5, because we're running out of time here. Let's talk, again, rapid fire. Let's check this off the list. Insurance.
Straightforward. If a church has a cyber attack and if there's a data breach, you need to have insurance to cover the cost. All right, because there's going to be some accounts that have been compromised.
Okay.
Because you need to have cyber insurance. Cyber insurance is needed. I'm just going to make that statement bland and as it is. Okay.
Put that on your list and check it off, right?
Right.
Next up of our remaining 3 items, upgrading your software. That should be another checklist item. Is there anything that jumps off the page, what that looks like?
Well, if you're working with a third-party vendor, or pretty much, let's say you have a third-party company that comes in your church and they do the install, testing, upgrades, and whatever, you need to know who they are and how they practice business. And you need to have somebody around that really understands what these corporations are doing, because you need to keep your software upgraded, but you need to know whether others are practicing the same type of security measures as you would in your church. Okay.
Right. So that's there's where trust but verify comes into play, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And 7 of the 8 is securing all devices. That's where you bring in an expert again as well, right? But and we're even talking about a lost phone. I had my phone lost or stolen, and it triggers a whole other things in terms of access to that data, right? But what are some devices we talk about securing? Where I don't think most churches are, I guess some are doing off-site or remote. Their employees are working remote, so that that applies as well, right?
It goes that I'm going to start from the top.
Right.
As soon as somebody comes through the front door, what type of devices do you need to protect when they're coming through the front door? When you have laptops,
right?
When you have phones, when you have websites,
right.
Okay. What about physical access to certain offices that you have in place? Okay. That all of those are places and devices that need to be protected. But in form of a hacker or a criminal, most of the times your endpoint devices will go serve as a financial honeypot for them.
Right.
And usually those are going to be your laptops and your cell phones and your tablets.
So although that pastor or minister may have an open door policy for their office, it shouldn't be open door to their technology, right?
That's true. That's true.
Should have closed with that one. That was a good one. Okay, so our last of the top 8 as we wind things down here. What about a security alert? What does that look like? Obviously, that's another ongoing, quarterly process. But what would a security audit look like?
Okay, an audit is going through and making sure that all the checks in the box are correct. You can go think of an audit as an assessment, or pretty much a quality look, where you do a data quality analysis, where you start to look and to verify that all the rules and all your controls are in place. Let's just say, for instance, if like one of your type of controls you have in place is that only designated staff members is going to have access to the church's financial account. Okay, maybe it's only 3 people. Now, as new people come on board and start to work for you, and let's say they get access to your system, well, you need to do audits and to make sure that only designated people have access to that particular information. Those are your audits. Also, too, email, because you want to make sure that only designated people can send out certain types of emails. Okay, so you really have to do your audits, because an audit is just there to actually make sure that everyone is doing exactly what they're supposed to do, including your third-party vendors, because supplier management is very important. I don't care if you have someone that comes in your building to go work on your HVAC machines.
Right.
Okay. They are walking through your front door.
Because they need some clearance for that, right?
Yeah, because it could be someone that is actually using a wireless sniffer. All right.
Right.
Let me see if I can scan in here and find some cell phones. Okay?
Right.
All right.
Yes, I mean, crazy. There's That'll open kind of Pandora's box. I think we may revisit that topic on a second session. Let's close things out with these are all like great pointers. I mean, red flags, awareness, issues that churches should be on the forefront. I mean, it'd be great if a church were able to contact a speaker to host a workshop or seminar on this topic. If only we knew someone that could host those for a church, right? How about Dewayne Hart? Exactly right.
I can host workshops, and I can sit down with the members, and I can go through and talk to them. But you know what's so interesting, especially about my workshops,
right,
is that they're fun and they are engaging, and I separate people into teams.
Okay.
And I do a lot of teach back exercises.
Right.
And I do some role playing.
Okay.
Where I would be the potential bad guy.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so their job is to stop me from doing the bad things. So if you're interested in having me to come by and to do a workshop, please go reach out to me.
That'd be great. And I imagine you could do those within Atlanta or potentially remotely as well. So
yes.
A church around the country, around the in U.S. for certain, could reach out. And that's, again, DewayneHart.com. There you'll find all the links, social media links, YouTube. You can purchase his book. You can check out his content, his podcast. But I think this would be a great call to action if you're a member of a religious or church organization, member of the staff, the pastor, the minister, and so forth. And this is something that maybe it happened to your church down the road. You want to be proactive on this, right, and get ahead of the game. You can definitely reach out to Dewayne and have a conversation, right?
Yes, and guess what? If you're listening to this podcast, I want you to share this with as many church members that you know, your friends that live in different states, so that everyone can at least go online and to listen to this podcast, because it's very important.
Yeah. Well said. All right, so we're going to sign off for this episode again. Rich Casanova here in the Global Podcast Studios on behalf of Dewayne Hart. We'll look for you online, and be safe, right? Be cool, be smart, right? And keep that hat on, that hacker set. We'll see you next time. Yeah. All right. See you on the flip side, as we like to say.